South Korea President Yoon Suk Yeol has vowed to unturned his impeachment votes passed by lawmakers on Saturday evening, according to the Asia country local time, a parliamentary decision which suspended him from performing his duties as the country president, but he will remain in office as the nation's president until the Constitutional Court made of 6 judges, 4 of whom were appointed by Yoon, decide if the impeachment is lawfully acceptable or not. Yoon Suk Yeol was suspended from presidential duties at South Korea local time at 7:24 p.m. Saturday, according to local media. The impeachment case will proceed to the Constitutional Court for review, and according to local observers, there is still uncertainty regarding the result at the Constitutional Court, saying there are currently only 6 judges, 4 of whom were appointed by Yoon. South Korean lawmakers voted on Saturday after last Saturday insufficient votes to impeach President Yoon Suk Yeol following a short-lived declaration of martial law last week Tuesday night. Yoon presidential powers are expectedly, according to the law, will be formally suspended once he is served with a copy of the impeachment resolution. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, appointed by Yoon in 2022, will take over as acting president while the country's constitutional court takes up the matter. Shortly after the parliamentary votes, Yoon, in a nationwide address, repeated his intention to fight the impeachment in the Constitutional Court, which will now decide whether to reinstate or formally remove him, a process that could take up to 6 months. "I will never give up," he said in a televised address shortly after the vote. Reports and videos posted online showed inside the National Assembly with a loud cheers and gasps from lawmakers when the speaker announced that the votes in favor of impeachment had crossed the 200 needed to pass. The result indicated that 12 lawmakers from Yoon's party joined the opposition to impeach him. Earlier reports showed protests in full swing outside the National Assembly, with thousands kept coming but orderly carrying placards, and floor cushions were distributed with markings on the floor for where to sit. People streaming out of subway stations here and nearby. "It feels like today's protest is their duty," one of the South Korean residents in Seoul stated in a tweet on X social media. The thousands of protesters gathered outside the assembly in frigid weather jumped up and down, and hugged or shook hands, with some playing drums in celebration of the favored impeachment votes were announced. Outside the National Assembly, loud cheers washed over a large crowd of pro-impeachment protesters, some of whom had set up free coffee and food stalls for fellow participants. According to local observers, the Constitutional Court would have 180 days to rule on Yoon's future. If it backs his removal, Yoon would become the second president in South Korean history to be successfully impeached. A dozen members of Yoon's Conservative People Power Party joined opposition lawmakers to pass the threshold of 200 votes, which was 2/3 of the legislators required for his impeachment. The final Kyiv on Saturday in Paris hints United States of America, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, that Ukraine needed just and enduring peace, that Russians under the leadership of President Vladimir Putin can't destroy in few years, with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy also stating how Russia is trying to subjugate Georgia after many wars against the country. Zelenskyy stated this in a statement issued last Sunday, giving out brief report of the outcome from the meeting he had with the U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron at the Élysée Palace during the Notre Dame Cathedral's reopening ceremony of the church building that caught fire in 2019. "Yesterday, I visited President Emmanuel Macron at the Élysée Palace and had a good meeting with President Donald Trump. We discussed important issues on the battlefield and in the global situation, from our front lines to North Korea. I stated that we need a just and enduring peace, one that the Russians will not be able to destroy in a few years, as they have done repeatedly in the past. This is clear not only for our country and region. We see how Russia is now trying to subjugate Georgia after several wars against that country. Russia still does not want to ease its grip on Moldova. Now the Russians are retreating from Syria, but that does not mean they will not try to sow death there again. Russian military presence is also active in Africa, with the sole purpose of destabilization. Therefore, when we talk about effective peace with Russia, we must first and foremost talk about effective guarantees for peace. Ukrainians want peace more than anyone else. Russia brought war to our land, and it is Russia that most seeks to disrupt the possibility of peace. Updated data on Russian losses show over 750,000 casualties, including 198,000 killed and more than 550,000 wounded. Our people are defending their homes at the cost of their lives, and every life of our soldiers and our civilians is precious to us. Since the start of the full-scale war, Ukraine has lost 43,000 soldiers killed in action on the battlefield. There have been 370,000 cases of medical assistance for the wounded. It also needs to be mentioned that in our army approximately half of the soldiers wounded in action are later returning to the battlefield, and that our data also includes light or repeat injuries. One of the key distinctions between the Russian army and Ukraine's defense forces is the level of frontline medicine, which is significantly higher in our forces. We are deeply grateful to everyone who supports its development, saves our wounded in action, and facilitates their rehabilitation. Since September this year, Russia has been losing troops on the battlefield at a ratio of 5:1, or even 6:1. Compared to us. They want to seize more land before global pressure on them becomes unbearable. Additionally, we must not forget our people in Russian captivity. United States of America, USA President-elect Donald Trump says his nominee for the job of Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI Director, Kash Patel is the most qualified person to lead the agency in its history, saying, Kash Patel will restore law and order allegedly lost under the leadership of Christopher Wray, who promised to resign as FBI director at the end of President Joe Biden's tenure. Donald Trump stated this on Thursday across his social media handles in reaction to the promised resignation of Christopher Wray on Wednesday at a town hall meeting with FBI employees. Reuters had reported that Wray's resignation makes him the second straight FBI director driven out by Trump, who during his first term in office fired Wray's predecessor, James Comey, after souring on him over the FBI's investigations into alleged contacts between Trump's 2016 campaign and Russia. That sparked one of two federal prosecutions Trump faced while out of power, neither of which went to trial. Trump denied wrongdoing and described all the cases against him as politically motivated. Federal prosecutors ended their efforts after his election, citing long-standing Justice Department policy not to prosecute a sitting president. FBI directors are appointed for 10-year terms, a measure meant to avoid the appearance of partisanship after political turnover in the White House every 4 years. Wray's term was not due to expire until 2027. Throughout his term, Wray said that he strove to impartially carry out the FBI's duties. During a 2023 hearing before a House of Representatives panel, he rebuffed the idea that he was pursuing a Democratic partisan agenda, noting that he had been a lifelong Republican. The idea that I am biased against conservatives seems somewhat insane to me, given my own personal background, Wray said, Reuters international news agency report ends in quote. Wray's decision to resign came 2 days after a key Senate Republican called for his departure and following a steady drumbeat of support for President-elect Donald Trump's replacement, Kash Patel, according to multiple media outlets. Trump appointed Wray in 2017 during his first term, but he became a constant target of criticism because of investigations on the former president, now president-elect, over Russian interference in the 2016 election and classified documents recovered in an FBI search of Mar-a-Lago. Wray told FBI employees in a town hall meeting that, in my view, this is the best way to avoid dragging the bureau deeper into the fray, while reinforcing the values and principles that are so important to how we do our work. Local observers said that Trump and his hardline allies turned on Ray, and the FBI more generally, after agents conducted a court-approved search of Trump's Florida resort in 2022 to recover classified documents he had retained after leaving office. Trump described the resignation of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI Director Christopher Wray as a great day for America.
Bringing you the news in a more digital way.